heard the angels calling me, what a heavenly sound. But then I heard old Elbert singing about shaky ground. Feeling low and flying high, I didn't know what to do. 'Cause I had one foot in the circle and one foot in the groove. In the groove. Now was I checking out or was I checking in? Should I get my shit together, say goodbye to my friends? I might need John the Baptist, John the Conqueror, 'cause I got one foot in the circle.
I am Johnny Cash.
And one foot in the groove. Well,
I feel like I've known you forever.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
We were struggling songwriters and hung out at the same building over there at Bob Beckham's.
Yeah, you were signed at Combine, and I was signed to a company on the second floor of the building there. It was a CBS-owned company. Although we saw each other around town some before this was around '68. When I know that's when I was signed with this company. So it was '68, '69 when I was with that company.
Yeah, that was when I was going down to the Gulf every other week.
Yeah, you still doing that?
I was flying helicopters on the offshore. My next assignment was to teach English Lit at the Academy at West Point. The people who were kind of my mentors in the Army, well, I thought that would be a great place for me to go because they said they'd take care of their own there and do West Point. But I went to Nashville on the way and just fell in love with this songwriting scene there and decided I was going to get out of the Army and go write songs. My family thought I was insane. And my peers weren't sure. The guys that I was in the Army with knew that that's what I wanted to do because I had a band in the Army when I was stationed in Germany. In fact, I had told a general who was a man that I really admired, General Larson, who was later made a name for himself over there in Vietnam. But right before I left Germany, he asked me about the West Point assignment and was I looking forward to it? And I said, well, you know, I might get out of the Army and be a songwriter. I might as well have said ballet dancer. I felt like it's not the thing you're telling the general, but he was great. He said, he looked at me and then he said, well, follow your heart. And it was
very cool.
A cool thing for a military man to say. I had sort of nosed into the business when I was over at Oxford in England. I had worked with a guy in London and had a record contract and almost they changed my name. and
what was that, Chris
Carson.
Yeah. When did that Vietnam Blues come
Well, that was the first,
that was
when I first went to town, I got a record cut immediately before I even, because I had written a kind of a talking blues, like a Woody Guthrie thing about a guy running into a demonstration about Vietnam. And it was from a soldier's point of view. But after that was cut, it was 4 years before I had any cut. Well, Roger Miller had recorded Bobby McGee, and it wasn't a big hit or anything for him, but it was Bobby Newirth, who was Dylan's roadie back in the Don't Look Back days, and songwriter, singer. He had was a friend of Janis's, and I think he worked with Albert Grossman, who was managing both Dylan and Janis. And he taught her the song before I met either one of them. I was down in Peru doing a movie with Dennis Hopper that he did right after Easy Rider. Crazy story. Anyway, when I got back photographer told me that Janice had sung the song at a concert she did in Nashville. And later on, just a few months later on, Bobby introduced me to her, Bobby Newirth, and we stayed at her house there for a month or so, out in Larkspur, California. Got very close, but I never heard her sing the song, and it was difficult to listen to because I'd never heard her singing it when she was alive. When I went down to see what had happened to her producer told me to come by the studio and played it for me that day. And as a matter of fact, I got to the point where I knew I was going to be hearing it on the radio because it was a hit. So I was listening to it one night over at this place that I was talking about where we used to hang out. And just listened to it over and over again so I could get steeled to it. So it wouldn't destroy me every time. Yeah. And Donnie came in, the two of us were the only ones in the building, and we listened to it over and over again. And then we wrote a song called Epitaph. And
why was she born so black and blue?
Why was she born so black and blue? Yeah, it was. I put it on the album that I was cutting at the time. Yeah. My first gig was at the Troubadour in L.A. June 1970, and it went over so well. We were opening for Linda Ronstadt at the time, and Billy Swan and Dennis Lindy were my band. Billy called me up, Billy Swan, and said, Donnie's got a great little keyboard.
Now what he didn't tell you, Donnie couldn't play it. He left that part out.
No, it was great, and picked up Zalyanowski on the way, and he was crazy.
Wonderful.
The old Love and Spoonful guy, and Norman Blake, who's a great acoustic guitar player. Anyway, Donnie was there from the second gig on, and he was the only one who had never left. He was there the whole time.
Couldn't run me off.
Couldn't run him off.
I think that was it.
Hell, our fourth gig was the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
With 500,000 people who hated us. They were going to kill us, but they hated everybody there.
Yeah, that night they hated
even
everybody.
hated Jimi Hendrix. It was awful. But I closed the set with it, me and Bob McGee, and walked off giving 500,000 people the finger.
I know.
When I started at the Troubadour, there were people giving us scripts all the time. In fact, Harry Dean Stanton, who used to sit around and sing with us, he brought me a script of Cisco Pike's. It's called Dealer at the time. And he helped me do a screen test on it. And I got the gig, and it got me other jobs. It was not a great movie, but a lot of good people in it, like Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman, yeah.
Were you guys weren't in that, were you?
You know, we were just in some background when they had to have the band, you know.
Yeah.
Early, like a flashback band.
They used a lot of my music in there.
Oh God! And we did the soundtrack, which was a real thrill.
Yeah.
You know? It was like a dream come true, you know. To first off, just working with Chris was the best thing that ever happened to me, and then to see one thing lead to another, you know, the hits started coming for him, and before, you know, I'd had a bunch of cuts of R&B stuff and everything. I was kind of struggling, as you say, but
it was an interesting combination, though, of music styles, though, because like Donnie said, he was from Muscle Shoals and familiar and making a lot of black music, and mine was more aimed at country, so it was a nice combination.
But you got to say, your country your songs, Chris's songs, was like a whole new era of song, a whole new style of writing. I mean, you had just as I was getting kind of used to maybe listening to country music and really kind of getting into, Chris comes along and changes the whole you know, way people looked at country music.
A lot of those, like Heaven Make It Through the Night, there was a resistance to the songs because there was such a conservative audience there in the country music capital of the world, but I think really we were both just writing soul music.
Oh, absolutely.
That we felt deeply about, you know. When I got the possibility of working with Sam Peckinpah, I had just finished seeing Straw Dogs, which was a powerful film, and The Wild Bunch, and Ride the High Country. Those were probably still my favorite Peckinpah movies. The opportunity to play Billy the Kid in a film with all those great people. Every great country character actor seemed to be in that film, and Donnie Fritz as well. Sam took a liking to him, and I remember him saying, "There's more casting in that chair right there than pointing at Donnie."
I remember how nervous you were. You wouldn't even come to the set that day because you had no idea what was going to happen. You know?
Well, you were a big part of that scene.
No, and the thing was, you know, I really didn't have any lines in it. So we started filming that one because I was nervous and had all these different things going, but Sam stops the filming. And of course, just about everybody else was there, Harry Dean, and all these people watching this scene, probably to see what was going to happen in there. And he stopped the film and said, "Well, you know, you need to say something." And you know, and so he stopped filming, and we went to his trailer, and he said, I tell you what you do. Just repeat what people say anytime you feel like it, you know.
And it really worked.
And so that was my part. I said, "Great, I won't have to
private parts."
Private parts, you know. Of course, I had no idea about acting or how movies were made. He said, "We'll go up to the scene where Bob knocks Donnie out of the chair, you know, with a shotgun." I didn't know that was coming, you know. So it was a lot of tension and everything was involved with the scene and everything. But anyway, it was just a great experience.
I was scared to death. Sam liked to have a lot of tension on his set, and he had it. And it was usually because of, by the time I got along doing films with him, it was because of conflicts he was having with the studio and with the producers. And it was a pretty volatile atmosphere on there.
One time when we were filming Your Death Scene, we had me and Bob and I think it was Luke asked you had this kind of a long walk to come up to the porch where you've been shot, you know. And so, you know, I had the mark where I was supposed to be, and so all Sam could see was something was wrong. He blamed it on me, you know. And he started screaming. I said, "Wait a damn minute, you know." I mean, of course, I would never talk back to him, but this was one time I knew I was right, you know. I said, Bob was supposed to lean against the post or something on the porch and I was standing beside him, something like that. I said, "So it really wasn't my fault." He said, "Well, if he does it again, knock his ass off the porch." So, like I wanted to knock the hell out of Bob Dylan.
Sure.
Yeah, like I would do that. But anyway, I mean, like I say, he was...
You know what was funny was what happened in that same scene. They were shooting it first. They were shooting sunset for sunrise, which meant you had a very, very narrow amount of time to film it, just when the sun was just right, you know, just at the horizon, and really only time to do it once. And right when we were shooting it, this is the whole movie. In the background, it goes. They had decided to go jogging. Harry Dean and Bob Dylan went jogging through the scene, and when they came back, the set was just like you could hear it up and drop. Nobody had the nerve to say anything